My name is Tiffany Nolan. I'm a principal user experience designer at Red Hat. We're going to investigate a mystery today. I felt like heading into the fall season, this would be a great thing to do, get everybody talk about a story. Just kind of have you follow along. But first, I want to ask you all a question. Have you ever been using an app or a website where on the surface it looks beautiful? Everything is working great. The buttons are all aligned. Everything was clean, but something just felt off about it. Yes? Anybody? A few of you? Okay, I'm sure all of you. We've all experienced it. The app was slow, it crashed without warning, it just felt confusing to use. It's like the interface itself was haunted. Over the next 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to follow the clues and unmask the villain in our crime here and see who's really behind all of these hauntings. This talk is for everyone, whether you're a developer, a designer, product manager. This is really open to anybody. So this talk is for you. And to keep the story moving, I will take any questions at the end if there's some time permitting. So with that, let's begin and check our scene of the crime. So what are the symptoms of this invisible crime that we're seeing here? We just talked about a few of these. Just this feeling of clunkiness, just friction. Nothing happens when you click a button, and then the next time, you click it, something loads twice. There's just something going on here. You might get nonsensical error messages, or you might just have slowness for no apparent reason at all. So what we're going to do today is we're going to explore this crime in more detail, find some clues, and then see if we can solve this mystery. But first, let's take a look here at a few of our usual suspects. Oh my, we have our UI here. We have the good old front-end code, and then we have compressed timelines. These are some of the typical things that are blamed, right, for a bad experience. But as we dig deeper, we're going to realize that these aren't the culprits. They're just red herrings. They are disguising this real culprit who's behind the scenes. It's not about who is to blame, but what is actually broken beneath the surface of this UI. So let's take a look at our first clue. I'm going to call this the muddled map. This is just having a lack of a clear shared language or naming conventions for our work. And this can really impact you whether you're, naming layers or writing functions. This map becomes useless if we can't communicate clearly what the purpose of the item is that we're working with. It's like a street sign with no name. It's also leaves our collaborators lost and forces them to stop and figure out where they are before they can even move forward. So this is really where our crime begins, this muddled map. It really imposes a heavy cognitive load on anybody else that's working with us and working with our code or our designs, every collaborator that we're working with. So as part of this, you can have a lot of lost time and energy, which actually trickles down to the product itself that you're working on. It can manifest as things like bugs, delays, or a broken experience. Ultimately, the problem here is a failure of empathy. So the muddle map is really a failure to respond to our collaborators' time and their ability and needs to be able to move forward with a clear path. Let's take a look at our second clue. This is our ghostly waiter. What is he serving up here? He's got some error codes, corrupt data, files not found. Is this who you want delivering your food? So a great API is like an empathetic waiter. It's clear, it's well documented, and when you order it or use it, it brings back exactly what you were asking for without any confusion. But a bad API is just like this ghostly waiter. It can be vague, unresponsive, and its behavior can be really unpredictable. So you might send your order, and you're not sure it was heard, when it'll be filled, or even if it'll be correct. So this isn't just about a technical inefficiency, it's a huge UX problem for the next developer who has to build and work with whatever it is that you're creating. When an API is a ghostly waiter, it imposes a significant cognitive tax on everyone else who is working with it. So just like our muddled map, we're adding to the confusion here. For example, a developer might see a vague request like get data / -ID by 5231. The data that comes back would be inconsistent with confusing names, and if something goes wrong, you might just get back a useless error message like internal server error. That's great. What do we do next? So this lack of clarity here is really what inevitably manifests as a bug, a delay, or a broken experience again for the end user. Our third and final clue is the hidden logic. This is our backend service. It's really the invisible internal processing that fulfills the user's request. When you have a lot of hidden logic, it creates a chaotic system for your developers that results in a frustrating user experience, like spinning loaders or failed requests. At this point, it isn't just about performance. It's about designing the backend with a clear, logical, and empathetic flow. This behind-the-scenes chaos inevitably manifests, like I just said, as a spinning loader or a failed request. And here you thought that you would get through a talk without AI being mentioned. Nope. Not one talk. So the truth is, as AI becomes a partner in our work, it's also becoming an invisible user that we also need to design for and account for. When we're designing for a machine, the consequences of a broken system are even more magnified. So if we think back to the muddled map that we talked about, so a human can usually, interpret, right? You can take a look, like if something's not named properly, they can guess. AI can't do that, so things need to be named properly. When we talked about the ghostly waiter, where a human might just get frustrated and not be able to proceed, the AI agent will just fail. They'll just fail and have like vague error messages. And then if we look at the hidden logic, a messy, inefficient backend won't just frustrate a human. It's going to directly impact the AI's ability to perform at scale and could eventually cause massive system-wide outages. So ultimately, the principle of empathetic design isn't just for people anymore. We're entering a new world here. They're a prerequisite for a future where humans and AI can collaborate together successfully. So we've now gathered all of our clues together. We have our muddled map, we have our ghostly waiter, we have the hidden logic. These are just 3 clues. There's probably many more clues out there, but lightning talk, so I had to kind of pick a few just to talk about here today. Each one of these is a fundamental disconnect between the system and the user's journey, which really creates the shadow that haunts every interaction. We've got a little creepy shadow guy up there watching over everything. But what is this villain, and how do we defeat it? The villain we've been hunting is actually a collective lack of empathy. You've probably heard me talk about empathy a few times when I was talking about the different clues. So we're going to call this villain the shadow of the UI. Pretty creepy and mysterious, right? It's really a monster made of tangled logic, inconsistent names, just a general disregard for the next person's experience. So that lack of empathy. The villain here isn't malicious, though. It's just a symptom of the process where we focus solely on functionality and forget about the human, or AI, on the other side of the code. So the good news, once you can name the villain, you can defeat it. We know the source of this haunting is a lack of empathy and these unseen parts in our system. How do we defeat it? If you've been listening, it's with empathy. If you've been paying attention, you might have heard me mention empathy a few times. It's really our most powerful tool against this haunting. It's not just a soft skill for designers. I'm a designer by trade, but I really encourage you all to embrace empathy. It's a foundational principle for building resilient and collaborative systems. It's our weapon against this haunting. Look at Scooby there. He is just fighting back all those shadows. We're no longer building features. We're actually building we're building a thoughtful, clear path for others to follow. So by applying empathy to our unseen parts of the system, we can shine a light on these shadows and push them back. So if empathy is our weapon, what do we do now, right? We've unmasked our villain, we've got our weapon, but how do we use that to fight the shadow of the UI? We do this by changing the way that we think about our work. Instead of just writing code, we start writing a narrative for the system. So every system that you're working with has a story. It has a purpose, a flow, a set of decisions that need to be made. So by asking simple questions like, what is the system trying to do for the user? What happens next in this journey? You can take a step back and start to really see this entire picture. This isn't about writing a long document either. Like, I'm not asking you all to create these long, crazy documents. It's just about adopting a mindset where the code that you write tells a story. Start thinking about the human, the developer who'll be following the logic of the system later. So with a clean, clear narrative in our code, you can actually have a gift for the future and chase away the shadow of the UI. And there's more. So we've named the villain. We've committed to fighting it with empathy. But what does that actually look like when you get back to work or whatever you're doing Monday morning? Like, what does this actually look like in practice? So there's two things that I want to share with you today as part of a toolkit that you can start using. The first one is journey mapping. So you may have heard journey mapping used a lot with UI design. It's, or when you're working with customers, you can work with customers or just other people that you're working with. You could also do journey mapping with your code and map out every step of the developer's journey. Where are they going? What are they doing? What are their frustrations? Where are the pain points? And this is really how you can shine a light on the unseen. Now, with the use of agentic AI, this becomes even more critical because you've got to not just map the human's journey, you've got to map the AI's journey as well. And kind of going back to the muddled map and the naming standards, the AI can get really confused. So by having this complete map of your system, you're also finding these challenge points for AI agents along with other humans. The second thing is empathy-driven documentation. So this is not just documenting what a function does, but looking at why it exists. So what is its purpose within the system's narrative? Provide clear examples of code. Good documentation anticipates the questions that others might ask. So again, building on that empathy. What are other people going to ask about this? And get into that mindset and go ahead and just create that for them from the start. These are really some simple practices that you can start using right away, but they're really incredibly powerful tools for defeating the shadow of the UI. So we started this talk by looking at a UI that felt haunted. We investigated the clues. We unmasked the villain, which we call the shadow of the UI, and we found our weapon in empathy. The mystery is solved, right? Yes. But the solution here isn't just about finding the culprit. It's really putting this into practice and just some of the foundations that I talked about with you all today. So, the mystery is solved, but the work is really just beginning here. And one last thing, if you would like to get involved with the user experience design team, one great way is to sign up for research. So you can follow this QR code that talks about all of the great research that we do, whether this is for UIs or even beyond, looking at CLIs as well. And then you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. So thank you all for your time. Fine. Yes. Sure. So the question is about, it's very easy to have empathy for humans. How do we start having empathy for AI? And I really think that's just about anticipating the needs and just really following the path. Like, obviously, the AI doesn't have feelings, at least not yet. Um, let's hope we don't get there. But I mean, it's just really kind of figuring out, what that path is. And the empathy, I think, in this case, is really preventing those failures and those dead ends from happening. All right. Thank you very much.